So this is the new Xiaomi Poco M3, and this phone costs $129 US. That's a very good price. Now, Poco reached out to me to sponsor this video and for me to give you my own opinions about this phone. And up until like a couple of years ago, usually when I looked at phones around this price point and I associated them with being cheap, I also thought that maybe they're not just going to be good phones at all because of their price point. But my stance on that has changed because smartphone tech has gotten so good over the years. You don't always need to have the latest and greatest. And I've used a couple of Poco phones over the last couple of years, and they've always kind of lived up to my particular belief with that. And there is one thing about this phone that jumps out right at me, and that's because it is right here on the front of the box. But yeah, this phone does have a 6,000 milliamp hour battery inside of it, and that's pretty big. So the price isn't big on this phone, but this battery definitely is. So let's see what you get for $129. So this price point is their early bird pricing. So the $129 gets you 4 gigabytes of RAM and also 64 gigabytes of storage. And then also they do offer a 128 gigabyte option as well. And then when the early bird ends, I think the regular price goes up to $149. That's starting with that 64 gigabytes. So that's still not a bad price. And so I like this yellow packaging that they have, and let's see what we get inside of this. So inside of this, we do get a case. So it's always good to have a case come with your phone so you don't need to go out and buy it if you want some, kind of definitely basic level protection for your phone. And then inside of here, we do have USB-C cable, and this also comes with an EU charger. So if you are in the US, you will need to use the one that you already have or go buy another one. But for people who are buying this for the EU, this charger is rated at 22.5 watts. And then the last little bits are a couple of wristbands here. And then we also have this, which I think is a wristband too, but it feels like a shoestring that's been tied up to be like that, but I think it's still cool. But that is all that comes inside of the box. Now let's look at the phone. And boom, here's the M3. And I have to say, this is a really good looking phone for the price. And then this does have a faux leather finish on the back of the phone, which feels good, looks nice, and hopefully should keep the fingerprints off the back of your phone. But then also too, I'm really liking this camera bump back here. It does look premium. And yeah, they definitely don't shy away from telling you who makes this phone on the back here. But yeah, it does have a triple camera setup. And we'll take a closer look at the cameras here in a little bit. And one thing about lower cost phones is that they typically have a headphone jack, and this phone does have one right there at the top. And you'll also find one of the two speakers on this phone, and the other one will be at the bottom next to the USB-C port. And on the right-hand side, you will find the volume controls and also too the power button that does have an integrated fingerprint scanner inside of it. So you can press your thumb down on it, unlock your phone at the same time while authenticating, and then boom, you're ready to go. And a few more extra things about this phone is that it does have a dual SIM card tray. It does support micro SD, so you can expand your storage up to 512 gigabytes. And it also does have an IR blaster here at the top. And so look, I know this is a sponsored video and sometimes people think you're just saying something because you're getting paid to, but no, honestly, these are all my thoughts and my opinions. And my initial impressions of the design of this phone is that it is really nice looking. Like if this phone costs $700, $800, $900, I would be fine with this design. I mean, it's not the thinnest phone out there, nor is it the thickest that I've used this year, but it definitely feels really good. It looks nice, has a matte black finish around the trim of the phone. And really the only small gripe I could have about this thing is that it does have this anti-fingerprint finish on the back of it, but because you have this kind of a glass surface here as far as the camera module, it does look good, but I think it will be getting some fingerprints on that. And all right, guys, so I do have the phone booted up here, and this phone is running Android 10, but it has their MIUI 12 software running on top of that. So I have to say, so far over the years, MIUI has definitely gotten better, and I'm still going through the setup process here, downloading apps and stuff, but it's pretty smooth. It's pretty good. And I think the additions to this don't really take away from that stock Android feel that much. And so I'm going to put up the specs for this phone. And again, this phone is not leading the charge for 2020 as far as like having the latest generation specs for every single thing. But you don't need that, especially for a phone for this price, especially because tech has advanced so much. But the biggest thing that jumps off for me as far as 2020 is that this phone does not have 5G. If you are needing that, this phone does not have that. But that 6,000 milliamp battery is just so much juice and so much battery that it should be able to get you through the entire day with no issues. Now, when it comes to smartphone batteries, you just can't throw a big battery inside of it and just say, hey, you're going to get great battery life. But when you have 6,000 milliamps, you definitely have some room to play around with there. But hopefully they've done some really good job with software optimization to make sure that huge battery is going to be able to last you for not just one day, but going into a day and a half and maybe even more. And another advantage of having that big battery is that this phone can do reverse wired charging. So you can get like a USB-C to USB-C cable, and now you can charge another phone, which is definitely convenient. So it's a good reason to have a big battery like this. And this phone also does support fast charging up to 18 watts. Now this phone is rocking a 6.53 inch 1080p display, and I have to say, looking straight on, it does look really good. Look at the detail that you do get. Now, one thing you could say is that when you start to kind of tilt the phone there a little bit, the viewing angles kind of make it a little bit kind of faded there, but for the most part, when you are looking straight on, it does look good. You do have a little bit of a chin here at the bottom, but besides that, I'm liking it. And you do have this teardrop front-facing camera here. And speaking of the cameras, let me actually take this thing outside to see what you get as far as camera performance with this thing. Okay, so I was going to film this talking part outside, but it's way too cold out here in St. Louis right now, so I'm just doing it inside. But anyway, on the front, you will find an 8 megapixel front-facing camera, and you can see from this portrait mode shot that I took with it, it's actually not too bad. It did a pretty good job at cutting me out from that background and did a nice job at some of that blur. And then when I switched over the phone and started using the rear-facing cameras, you do find a 48 megapixel wide-angle camera and also a 2 megapixel macro camera and a 2 megapixel depth camera. And so the first thing I did with these cameras on the back is take a portrait mode photo, and you can see of this sign that it did a good job as well. And sometimes phones struggle with taking pictures of objects and things like that as far as portrait mode, but this one did a pretty decent job. I'm really not mad at this photo either. Then I switched over and took a photo in the dedicated 48 megapixel mode. So if I did want it to crop in after the fact, I wouldn't lose a lot of detail because I have those extra megapixels to play with. And then here's the macro mode in action here, and you can see that with the main wide angle camera, I'm really not able to get that close, but when I do switch over to the macro camera, I am able to get a lot closer. And then also too, with this phone, it does have a dedicated night mode, and I think it did a pretty good job at brightening up this particular alleyway, and so I was able to see a little bit more detail, especially with that fence. And then leaving photos and going over to the videos real quick. So both with the rear facing and the front facing cameras, you can record 1080p video up to 30 frames per second. So again, price to performance is what you're trying to look at here when it comes to the video quality, also with the photo quality. And also you will find some extra things like a time-lapse mode and also a pro mode in this camera app as well, so you can play around a little bit to get a different type of shot. And so there's really not that much more to say about this phone. And if you are a power user, this phone is not going to be for you. I'm sorry, it just doesn't have those latest generation specs that you might need. But I think most people aren't power users and you just need a phone to get you through the day. I think for this price point, it definitely is a really good solid phone to get, especially with that extra battery life that you get. And then my favorite part about this phone is definitely the design of it. I think it looks better than some phones that cost hundreds of dollars more than it. And then also too, this faux leather finish here does add a premium feel to a phone that costs less than $150, or at least starts less than $150. So look, here's a Poco M3, and in an era of a lot of phones that cost close to $1,000 and up, I'm thinking this phone is definitely refreshing, and I can see this phone being really good for a lot of people out there. And so I'll leave a link down below in the description box for this phone so you can go pick up one for yourself. And also leave a comment down below and let me know whether or not you could use a phone that costs less than $150, whether or not you'll be turned off by the price, or does this look pretty solid in your eyes? Let me know down below. But like always, I do want to thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you later. Peace.